I would like to welcome the members of the public who have joined us in this chamber tonight. Members of the public attending council and committee meetings are expected to behave respectfully at all times and not permitted to engage with the councillors or council officers during the course of the meeting. This includes directing loud and inappropriate comments towards councillors and officers or making noise that impacts council's ability to conduct its meeting. All persons present tonight have a right to be safe and treated with respect. Council will not tolerate any behaviour that threatens the safety of anyone present in the chamber or which disrupts the ability for Council to conduct its business on behalf of the community. You will be asked to leave the meeting if your behaviour is inappropriate, disruptive or rude. Due to ongoing disruptions experienced at the council meetings, all members of the gallery are required to pre-register their attendance at council meetings to support continuous efforts to maintain a safe and secure environment for all participants while allowing council to conduct an ordinary meeting. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please follow the directions of the council officers and the emergency procedures on the wall near the door. I would like to note I have given approval for Channel 31 to live stream this meeting. A recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Please stand for acknowledgement of country. On behalf of Brimbank City Council, I respectfully acknowledge and recognise the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people as traditional custodians of this land and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I ask councillors to remain standing for the council commitment. Others may be seated. As the council, we will act in the best interest of the Brimbank community and consider the immediate and long-term impact for our decisions. We will make these decisions fairly and without bias. We will uphold all of our obligations under the laws of Victoria and Council's local laws, and will act in accordance with our code of conduct. Councillors, please be seated. I'm going to go to item 3, apologies. Councillor Papalia and Councillor Kerr have submitted an apology for this meeting, and Councillor Tarkos is on leave of absence. There are two leave of absence requests for tonight. May I have a mover of a motion to approve the request? It's on the screen. Councillor Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the request as per shared screen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Yep, Councillor Borg.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
All this in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. I'm going to go to item 4, disclosure of conflict of interest. Are there any disclosures of conflict of interest to tonight's meeting? Yep, Councillor Riley.
I wish to declare a conflict of interest for item 13.7 due to potential connections to employment.
Thank you. I'm going to go to item 5, designation of items as confidential. May I have a move of a motion to designate the item as confidential? Councillor David, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ward.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All this in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. I'm going to go to item 6, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. May I have a mover to confirm minutes of previous meeting? Yes, Councillor Nguyen.
Madam Mayor, I would like to move to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor David. Thank you. All this in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. I'm going to go to item 7, which is condolences. There are no items for condolences for this evening. I'm going to go to item 8, congratulations. There is one item for congratulations tonight. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move a motion of congratulations for Councillor Papalia. The reason why she's not in the chamber today is because she recently gave birth. So I would like to say on behalf of council, congratulations to her and her family and the new person in the world. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor David?
Seconded, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. You spoke already, Councillor Nguyen, or would you like to say more words to it? Councillor David, would you like to speak to it?
Well, another baby, a boy, so the cherry ripe, as she told me, got a double. So, yeah, well done, Jay. And, yeah, I hope everything goes well. Well done.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Yes, Councillor Borg.
I would also like to join my fellow councillors in congratulating Councillor Papalia, and I would also like to extend these congratulations to her family too.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Yes, Councillor Lancashire.
Certainly, I'd like to echo the congratulations by my fellow councillors. We're all very excited and very pleased. We've seen this evolving over a few months and it's happened. Fantastic, great news, well done. And congratulations to the family too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Before I put it to vote, on behalf of Brimbank City Council, I'd like to congratulate Deputy Mayor Jay Papalia for giving birth to a beautiful baby boy yesterday. We know Councillor Papalia will be an excellent mother to her two adorable children and look forward to seeing them around our office. Thank you. I put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. We're going to go to item 9. There are 2 items to be tabled this evening in accordance with the requirements in section 1474 of the Local Government Act 2020. The items tabled are the arbiter decisions and statements of rescission of the matter of an arbitration application by Councillor Russick and others concerning Councillor Maria Kerr, and an arbitration application by Councillor Russick and others concerning Councillor Victoria Tarkus. As these items are being tabled administratively, there will be no debate on this matter, but they will be recorded in the minutes of this meeting. So we're going to move to item 10, public question time. I believe we have received some questions for tonight, Mr. Belliver.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have several questions tonight. In accordance with the governance rules, I'd like to note that the preamble of some questions will not be read out, but will appear in the minutes. Additionally, the rules allow for 2 questions per person. Third questions will not be read out. Our first question is from Richard Carthew, who asks, the draft Sunshine Energy Park Vision Plan has been costed at $500 million by WT Partnership. How much of this will be funded by Brimbank City Council?
The Sunshine Energy Park Vision Plan presents an ambitious vision for the park. The vision plan clearly states that the realization of the plan will rely on external investment and partnership. The value of this project and the contribution from Council cannot be determined at this stage. However, the intent is for the vision to be released by investment from partners and other stakeholders.
Richard also asks, the feasibility study and business case for establishing a solar farm at Energy Park has been finalised and been deemed not economically viable. Can this feasible study and business case be made available to the residents and ratepayers of Brimbank?
As business case for solar farm at Sunshine Energy Park has been prepared, it is not proposed to make it publicly available because it contains information that is commercial in confidence.
Jenny Isa has asked, will Council be using the significant investment clause to deter the public from objecting to the Vietnamese museum planning application? If so, does that mean that local residents will have no say in its construction and loss of parking to local businesses?
Is that a 3? Yeah. Closure 53.22 of the Brimbank Planning Scheme is a statewide provision that relates to significant economic development. The Minister for Planning is the responsible authority for any application for use or development to which Clause 53.22 applies, not the Brimbank City Council. Council understands that the Vietnamese Museum of Australia has applied to the Minister for Planning for approval of the proposed museum. Should the Minister provide the opportunity for public to have a say on the proposal, Council encourages them to do so.
Sam Chabib has asked, my questions relate to the Fitzroy Road level crossing removal at Sunshine West Ardea. The community would like an update regarding when will the energisation of public road lighting occur. The temporary lighting with trailers have been switched on, have not been switched on, accident waiting to happen. When will all the graffiti along the overpass and below be removed from the area, and how will it be monitored to either not occur or be cleaned up in a timely manner?
The matter raised out the responsibility of various organisations with the state government, mainly the level crossing removal team. Council officers have passed on the concerns to the project team, but as we are not responsible, we are unable to provide a formal response. Please keep an eye on the level crossing removal project updates or contact them directly.
Ayan Carney has asked on behalf of the Brimbank Youth Services Dynamic Young Citizens Program. Children's rights are essential to the well-being of a community. However, some kids feel like they have no rights. How is Brimbank Council protecting children's rights?
Brimbank Council is a child-safe organisation adhering to 11 child-safe standards with a strong emphasis on Standard 3, which focuses on children and young people are empowered about their rights, participate in decisions affecting them, and are taken seriously. Brimbank City Council has a child safety and wellbeing policy which guides Council's commitment to safeguarding children's rights.
Ayan also asks, mental health is a serious issue impacting children. What is Brimbank Council doing to support primary school age children facing mental health challenges?
Brimbank Youth Service deliver a number of early intervention programs with schools in relation to the mental health and general well-being of students, including friendship and body image programs, as well as aiding school to identify school-specific supports.
Despina Chavalis has asked, given the current financial climate, what amount of monies is Brimbank City Council budgeting for the 2024-2025 to support disability communities and Aboriginal communities in our Brimbank moving forward?
The Brimbank City Council budget for 2024-2025 involves an integrated approach to supporting people with disability and Aboriginal communities in the delivering of services, planning and implementation of projects, programs or initiatives across the organisation and in the community. This also includes the effective delivery and monitoring of the Disability Action Plan 2022-2026 and the Reconciliation Action Plan 2024-2026.
Graham Bloor asks, regarding the arbitration, what is the cost to ratepayers for this, and was internal mediation sought first?
The cost is unknown at this time as arbiters have yet to submit the invoice. The most applicable process under the Council's Code of Conduct was used in this matter.
Shannon Milak asks, what metric does Council use to measure the strategic objectives of action plans have been met, and what community engagement, if any, is conducted by Council to determine that the such objectives have been indeed met?
The annual Community Satisfaction Survey measures community satisfaction with our performance. Results can be accessed on the Brimbank Council website. The annual report includes a report of operations as well as financial statements. Indicators in this report include community satisfaction together with other metrics that include council performance. The annual report is also available on council's website.
Shannon also asks, in the agenda it is stated that phase 2 of the community engagement process included 5 pop-up in-person sessions. Can Council please advise how and where specifically these sessions were advertised to inform people that they could come and provide their feedback in person rather than online?
The pop-up in-person session was designed as a casual way of connecting with people who otherwise would not participate in traditional methods of community consultation in their local community. Community members were also invited to contact and provide submission via the Your Say community engagement platform.
Lorraine Milak has asked, what supports or programs does Council have that are specifically targeted to disabled people aged 25 to 55 and who are not eligible for NDIS funding or do not have a carer or career? Please list them individually rather than suggest there are several options available.
A range of support, services and programs are available, including home and community care programs for young people that supports people to continue living home independently. Our libraries and neighborhood houses also have programs that cater to all abilities. In the interest of time, a full list will be provided with the minutes.
Lorraine has also asked, noting the draft action financial plan states $5,317,000 will be allocated to age and disability programs. Can Council advise what percentage of that funding will be allocated specifically to supports and programs for disabled people aged 25 to 55?
People under 65 represent approximately 10% of service clients for aged and disability service area and approximately 21% of the total budget allocation.
Madam Mayor, there are no further questions. Noting that questions previously answered have not been read out, nor have questions deemed to be aimed at embarrassing councillors or the council. Additionally, a number of questions relating to operational matters were received. These matters will be answered operationally outside of public question time.
Thank you. I'm going to go to item 11, petitions. There are no petitions to be received this evening. Item 12, minutes, reports of delegated committees. There are no minutes or reports of delegated committees for tonight. Item 13, officers' report. There are 13 officer reports for consideration by council tonight. If you have alternate or amended motion this evening, you must draft these motions and provide to the governance team by email so that they may be shared on screen and form part of the meeting. Otherwise, we may have to defer to the matter until the motion has been written, allowing the meeting to proceed uninterrupted. So we're going to go to 13.1, Final Draft Council Plan Action Plan 2024-2025, Financial Plan 2024-2034, and Annual Budget Plan 2024-2025. Ms. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the final draft council plan, action plan year 4, 24-25, final draft financial plan 24-34, and the final draft annual budget 24-25 to council for adoption. Informed by 2 stages of community consultation, the final draft council plan action plan outlines 81 actions to be delivered in year 4, while the final draft budget and 10-year financial plan demonstrate council's financial commitment towards a range of important services, programs and infrastructure. In combination, these documents continue council's important work in meeting the strategic directions and objectives in Together We Are Brimbank Council Plan. Following an initial stage of community consultation in November and December 2023 that informed the development of the Year 4 Action Plan and draft budget, both documents were released for further community consultation after the April Council meeting. Written submissions were received from 55 people and more than 90 people provided input through the in-person engagement activities between the 18th of April and the 16th of May this year. Feedback and input from community was evaluated and has resulted in updates to the final draft annual budget 24-25 and the final draft financial plan. In summary, it is recommended that Council, having considered Phase 2 Community Consultation Report at Attachment 1, adopts the final draft Council Plan Annual Action Plan Year 4 24-25 at Attachment 2, the final draft Financial Plan 24-34 at Attachment 3, and the final draft annual budget 24-25 at attachment 4, and sets the rate in the dollar capital improved value municipal charge for rateable property at $84 and sets service rates and charges. Authorises the CEO to give public notice of the decision to adopt the final draft action plan, annual action plan year 4 24-25 the final draft Financial Plan 24-34 and the final draft Annual Budget 24-25, and that Council writes to submitters thanking them for their submissions and advising of Council's decision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the Director? No? Okay. I'm pleased to introduce the Year 4 Council Plan Action Plan, Financial Plan and Annual Budget for 2024-2025. This key strategic document outlines Council's ongoing commitment to delivering our vision for Brimbank that strives towards our beautiful, thriving, healthy and connected community. Over the next year, Council will deliver 81 actions that respond to priorities identified by our community through our consultation process. Initiatives include activities to strengthen community connection, foster mental and physical health, reduce the impact of climate change, and contribute to the overall livable of our city. Financial sustainability is controlled to our forward planning with escalating challenges such as climate change, increased cost of living, and cost of materials, aging infrastructure, and increased landfill levies. The state government rate cap poses significant challenges to Council as it sets at 2.75%, well below CPI. These factors have a considerable impact on our operations, and Council will continue to advocate to the state and federal governments for increased funding to ensure we can continue to provide the infrastructure and services our community needs. The 2024-25 budget will see an investment of $263.3 million into operations that includes $13.9 million for libraries, arts and culture, and our neighbourhood houses and community centres. $6.5 million to deliver maternal and child health services. $15 million towards our leisure services, which includes the Brimbank Aquatic and Wellness Centre and Sunshine Leisure Centre. And $17.6 million for parks and trees. The budget also includes $58.7 million for capital works, including $18.8 million for improvement to community facilities, including sports and early learning facilities, $27.9 million towards upgrading roads and drainages, $5.2 million for playgrounds, parks and gardens, $2.1 million on walking and cycling paths to connect our city, and $0.9 million on assets, including $825,000 for library books. Thank you to all of the community members who took their time to provide feedback that has shaped our annual action plan, financial plan, and annual budget. In the coming year, we will continue to deliver essential programs and services that will further strengthen and build a resilient Brimbank community. Along with my fellow councillors, I commit Brimbank Annual Action Plan 2024-2025, Financial Plan 2024-2034, and Annual Budget Plan 2024-2025. Do I have a mover of this item? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Borg.
I'll second the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think you've summed it up very well. It's a very comprehensive work program for us, and I would certainly like to reiterate the concerns raised about rate capping and the inability of the government to move forward from that, or to even consider splitting that to works and other items. I think this is placing councils in Victoria in a dangerous situation in the sense of being able to maintain their infrastructure by not being able to split the rate system. And I've certainly heard of some country councils that were hit by floods and fires, having to lay off staff and not being able to do the work they needed. So there's a lot of pain out there, time for the government to change on this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this report?
Not really, Madam Mayor, except to say and what you have said and Councillor Lancashire said and what the report says. This is a very difficult budget for us, and I want to assure the community that we have a very, very thorough process to be where we are today and to bring this final draft to the chambers. Another thing is that to mention is that no changes have been made to the draft council plan annual action plan year 4 as a result of the community consultation, which also brings me to the point to thank the community for their contributions in their submission. Thank you, everyone.
Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, I would like to just continue on with what the councillors have said. Your speech has summarized it really well, what the whole budget is about. It's a very extensive process. But I would like to highlight a key change to our capital budget, specifically the advancement of the J.R. Parsons Football and Cricket Pavilion project to yield with the allocation of $400,000. And this is directly reflecting the valuable feedback that we have received from our community. And I just really want to highlight that this change, among many others, demonstrates Council's commitment to incorporating community input into our financial planning and ensuring that our actions align with the needs and the expectations of our residents. So I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to everyone who has engaged in our budget process, whether you've attended the pop-up consultations, written submissions. Like, your feedback really does make a difference, and your participation is crucial in shaping our beautiful city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Councillor David.
I'd like to, Madam Mayor, it's a very, very good budget. And I think the keg you share all around, the only part of them very happy to speak about tonight is what Councillor Nguyen just said. We, the councillors from the Harvester Ward, never had so many requests and telephone calls. Now, individual, every day I was receiving telephone calls from the J.R. Parsons Reserve. And I'd like to thank the officers for putting in for this. It was about to happen, but I think this is the best time of the year to happen. And I'm glad that the pavilion, or perhaps the change rooms, the joint change rooms between Grand United and that of the Arden Football Club, be having a house in the near future.
Thank you. Any other councillors before I put it to vote? I'll put this item to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 13.2 Governance Report, June 2024. Ms Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In this month's governance report, councillors are asked to consider matters relating to recent governance activity, contracts entered into and works orders approved in accordance with the S7 Instrument of Subdelegation, and councillor declarations of representations by members of Parliament. Additionally, there is a proposal to amend the 2024 council meeting schedule due to amendments proposed to the Local Government Electoral Regulations 2020, based on the Victorian Electoral Commission's advice regarding the increasing election complexity. The amendments seek to change the candidate nomination period from 9th of September to the 17th of September. Consequently, council's election or caretaker period will begin at noon on the 17th of September, necessitating the changes to the September meeting schedule to avoid 2 council meetings during the election period. As per the election period policy, the only items to be considered at council meetings held during the election period will be the annual report and administrative reports. Notice of motion submitted by a councillor during the election period that relates to electoral matter would not be accepted, and public question time will be suspended during the election period. Finally, the report seeks endorsement for a submission to the inquiry into local government funding and service delivery in Victoria. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Borg.
I'll move this report as per business papers.
Do I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Riley.
I second the motion as per the shared screen.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly, I want to make some comments about the submission to the inquiry into the local government funding and service delivery in Victoria that is also included in this month's governance report. Council highly welcomes this opportunity to participate in this inquiry. Our municipality has unique and specific circumstances. As such, the local government funding and services delivery mechanisms require a reform. This submission looks at 3 items and takes that into consideration. One of them is the socio-economic and multicultural factors. Considering the low socio-economic state of our community, many residents are reliant on council services, which puts a lot of pressure when it comes to delivering equitable and effective services. The second one is the role in providing social cohesion. With over 160 languages being spoken in this municipality, in as much as it is an asset, it also presents a great need to provide services and programs to foster social cohesion. And the third one is the contaminated land issues, which is also quite unique in our municipality. The management of this contaminated land is huge, and it's quite a financial burden to this council. Another item was addressing climate change risk, as risks is another one, especially with regards to the urban heat island effect. This submission includes a number of recommendations within the context of these unique circumstances. It's important that the state government takes these matters into consideration when it comes to funding and service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Riley, would you like to speak to this report?
No, Madam Mayor, I think Councillor Borg summed it up nicely. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor? Would anyone else like to speak to this report? I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 13.3, Governance Policy Review. Ms. Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider governance policies that are proposed to be revised or revoked to ensure legislative compliance and support good governance. Council is recommended to endorse the community consultation, the revised Councillor Code of Conduct, Councillor Gift Benefits and Hospitality Policy, the live streaming of council meetings policy, the public transparency policy and councillor support policy, which are at attachments 1 to 5 to the report. Council is also invited to note the Ready Reckoner documents at attachments 6 to 8 that identify where relevant content from the Councillor Transparency Policy, Councillor Respectful Conduct Policy and Councillor Protocol can be transferred to other policies. Council is also asked to endorse community consultation on the proposed revocation of the Councillor Transparency Policy, Councillor Respectful Conduct Policy, Councillor Protocol. Endorse the revocation of the Councillor Portfolio Policy and terms of reference at the end of this current council term. Note the sunsetting of Brimbank Governance Major Policy Consultation Local Law Number 3 and receive a further report outlining any community consultation submissions made on the revised policies and present a final draft on the policies for consideration. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Borg.
I'll move the report as per business papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Riley.
I'd like to second the motion as per the shared screen.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to it?
Briefly, Madam Mayor, this report includes 8 governance policies that relate to councillors. 5 of these policies have been reviewed to be presented for community consultation after their endorsement by Council. And another 3 policies have been reviewed and considered to be revoked because of the content is considered to be duplicated and or transferred to other policies. As mentioned by Director Georgie Hill, the Council Portfolio Policy and Terms of Reference, which was introduced as a pilot in 2018, is to be revoked, and the reasons are documented in the report. It's perhaps also worth mentioning that another policy that is included in this report is the live streaming policy. Again, we had a lot of discussions about this, making sure that we cover whatever we can, especially when there are problems with technology, whether the meetings should continue or not. So I want to make that very clear because there was great concern about the meeting that we had recently, and we had so much technological problems, and the meeting had to continue. So I want to assure the community that we had a lot of discussions about that. I'm very much looking forward to the consultation and the feedback from the community, and we welcome them wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Riley?
No, thank you, Councillor Rassick. I think
It's Mayor Rassick,
Mayor
thank
Rassick,
you.
sorry. I think Councillor Borg summed it up nicely.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? If not, I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Thank you. I'm going to go to 13.5. Sorry, 4. Quarterly Advocacy Report, June 2024. Ms. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is a regular quarterly report which outlines the highlights in relation to advocacy from early March to late May in relation to the delivery of the Brimbank Advocacy Plan 23-25. The report details the outcomes of the state and federal budget and recent activities and announcements relevant to Brimbank. Councillors recommended to note the report. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the Director? If not, do I have a move of this report? Councillor Nguyen.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move the motion as the shared screen.
Yeah, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to this report?
Yeah, I think quite briefly, I would like to acknowledge that this report really shows how much work council goes into advocating for better outcomes for our community. And a couple I'd like to highlight includes a couple of announcements made in terms of progress with transport in particular. So one of the items voted, which is a gold priority for Brimbank, is getting better bus services for Melbourne's West. And Brimbank's actually part of a alliance with different councils in the Western region called Lead West. And I think it was really pleasing to see here that the Victorian announcement of $150 million investment into new bus services across Melbourne's north, west and southeast. But that's, for us, particularly in Brimbank, that's really important because we know we don't have the best bus connections. So really thankful for you and the officers for trying to get something like this together. But also, just in a big relation to Harvest Award, like the Albion Quarter structure plan, because one of the things that council has been advocating for years is really trying to uplift the whole Albion region. So it was good to see that there was a discussion paper. So thank you on that, but I'll just leave it to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire.
No additional comments, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Councillor Borg?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In addition to what Councillor Nguyen mentioned with regards to the highlights of this of the Council's advocacy, the Lead West for new and improved bus services in Melbourne's West, and the release of the Albion Quarter Structure Plan discussion paper, as well as the expansion of the West Side Lodge public residential rehabilitation facilities. And of course, there are more highlights in the report. The report also makes reference to Council's concerns with the 4-year delay of the delivery of the Melbourne Airport rail and the impact that it may have on the implementation of the Sunshine Master Plan and the rebuild of Albion Station. Thank you once again to the officers for this
Thank you.
report.
Anyone else, councillors, before I put it to vote? I put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 13.5, Planning Activity Update and Delegate Decisions and Planning Scheme Amendment Update, May 2024. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with information on the status of planning permit applications and trends in planning approvals in Brimbank, and decisions that were made by officers under delegated authority during May regarding planning permit applications and other matters. In addition, we provide Council with the status of current planning scheme amendments at the 31st of May of this year. And officers recommend that councillors note the activity update report, including the detail of decisions made under delegation at attachment 1, and notes the planning scheme amendment summary at attachment 3. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this report? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Borg.
I'll second the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you.
Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an important requirement to implement the strategy adopted by Council in April 2024 into the Brimbank planning scheme. Within the next 20 years, Brimbank will be going through enormous changes that require more housing and types of housing to meet the various needs of the community. Besides the typology, the location is also important with a focus on strategic positions. Rezoning residential land is therefore imperative. This is what this amendment seeks to do. This amendment also addresses environmental, social, and economic effects. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 13.6, Brimbank Planning Scheme Amendment, C239, Brim Housing and Neighbourhood Character Strategy. Mr. Walsh. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the proposed amendment C239 Brimbank to the Brimbank Planning Scheme, which would implement the strategy, the Brimbank Housing and Neighbourhood Character strategy work that's previously been adopted by Council. The officer recommendation is extensive and provides a range of administrative functions to implement the planning scheme amendment. I would like to highlight for Council that the report does discuss the dependency on the planning scheme amendment C225, which relates to the translation to the new format for the planning scheme. And I wish to advise Council that since the publication of the amendment, and as late as 4:30 this afternoon, Council did receive advice from the Department of Transport and Planning that the amendment C225 has been approved. With some conditions, so that will then enable the amendment C239 to progress. And as I said, Madam Mayor, the officer recommendation is for Council to note a range of factors related to the amendment, and also then to provide direction to the officers to undertake a range of administrative actions to progress the amendment to the state. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Borg.
Happy to second it, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just some brief comments that this amendment has been ongoing for quite some time. It is very significant for the planning scheme. Translating it into the new planning scheme format has been a major work for all councils in Victoria to do this transformation and put strategic planning in a more consolidated form. It's also included our new municipal planning strategy. So this again is a very important function for council in terms of planning, and it's nice to have these things updated. They're meant to be updated, I think, every 4 years or something like that. Municipal strategies, no? Oh, yes, thank you. Keeping these things up to date is very important to see that we've now got this. It's quite exciting to see that the minister's approved it and will eventually become part of our planning scheme. So this keeps Brimbank right at the forefront of modern planning processes. So good to see for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I owe the council and the community an apology because the comments that I made for the previous report, I was actually referring to this report, so I made a mistake. I sincerely apologize about that. But as Councillor Lancashire said, it's great to have this in front of us to be endorsed by council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Would anyone like to speak to this report? I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 13.7, Biodiversity Strategy Review. Mr. Walsh. We're just going to wait for Councillor O'Reilly to leave the room. Do we need microphones or no? That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to for council to receive the Biodiversity Strategy and Habitat Connectivity Plan Review, which is at attachment 1. And officers recommend that council notes the review that we've undertaken and the detail provided there in attachment 1, and also notes that in 2025 we propose to develop a new biodiversity strategy which will incorporate the Habitat Connectivity Plan, and that at that point we will present to council and propose that council releases the new strategy for community consultation once it's developed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for Mr. Walsh? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Nguyen.
Madam Mayor, I would like to move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lancashire. As per shared screen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Second the officer's recommendation.
Would you like to speak to this motion or this report, Councillor Nguyen?
Yes, quickly. I, for one, am quite pleased to encourage other councillors to also endorse this motion, because it's really pleasing to read how much progress has been made when you go through the comprehensive review that has been done by the council in terms of the biodiversity strategy and habitat connectivity plan review. It showed that we've had 100% completion of the biodiversity strategy actions and 94% completion rate for the habitat connectivity plan actions. So much success is noted in this one, like ongoing management of our conservation reserves, social planning scheme amendments that we just talked about, like more, the introduction of habitat elements, and active community engagement programs. So if you've been to these tree planting days, that's part of it as well. And these achievements reflect Council's strong commitment to protecting and enhancing Brimbank's natural environment. But there's always room for improvement, and the report does identify opportunities to further strengthen our biodiversity management. So that includes increasing our knowledge of current biodiversity values, taking into climate change considerations as well, and empowering our community to contribute to environmental protection. And I think it's fantastic that our future strategy will incorporate the habitat connectivity plan because, gosh, there's so many documents. So it's great to put it all together. And yeah, I just really like to commend this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lancashire. Would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would certainly like to support and echo the comments of Councillor Nguyen. The significance of this is a great leap forward. When you have biodiversity, what it means is that you must have areas set aside for plants and animals that allow biodiversity, genetic diversity to be maintained. If those areas are too small, you can have degradation and eventually a loss of species. And Australia has been a country where we have lost too many species. So our ability to link all these areas so that it progressively plants and animals can link up and maintain that biodiversity is an extremely important asset for a country like Australia. We've seen things like, as you go along freeways, wires that run across freeways to allow animals to negotiate across between one side and the other. More recently in Sydenham Park, we've seen little bridges where skinks and other animals can make their way under roads safely to link up areas. So already work has begun in that area, and that's exciting to see. There's more to be done. But just the fact that this council is taking these sort of issues seriously is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this report, councillors? I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. We'll just wait for Councillor Riley to come back. Going to move to 13.8, submission to developing a plan for Victoria. Mr. Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider endorsing a draft submission to the state government's consultation on their development of a plan for Victoria, and our draft submission is attached at attachment 1 to this report. Officers recommend that Council notes and endorses the submission to the Plan for Victoria process and enables officers to submit it on behalf of Council to the Department of Transport and Planning. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second the motion as per the shared screen.
Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, look, I compliment the officer's work on this and recommend this report to Council. This is quite a complex, quite a complex space at the moment. We have released recently the national urban strategy, state plannings, and of course the state planning strategy, which is part of this document. We've had recently released a state housing strategy, and very recently the municipal housing targets, which for Brimbank are about 75,000. There's about 72,000 dwellings in Brimbank. It's taken us 150 years to get that to get to that level of 72,000 dwellings, and we're told that we've got 25 years to double it. And of course, we're all just a short time ago talked about constraints on local government with funding. This is very difficult. It looks a bit like shifting the responsibility to local government in some respects when it comes to these sort of things, and some serious work needs to be done. And things like the CFMEU, for example, impacts on the cost of major projects, but also impacts on the cost of projects, residential projects that exceed 4 stories. That's what I'm understanding. So again, if we want to achieve these targets, we're going to need a whole of government approach. Amendments by the state government for increasing housing around suburban stations is another one where we need every bit of help for Sunshine and Albion and other places to try and achieve this. In discussing this with the director, Calvin Walsh, I have every confidence that we will approach this and give it a good crack at trying to achieve these things. But we certainly need a lot more support from the state government to help with this, not just simply shifting responsibility. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Riley, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Lancashire summed it up.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Borg?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In addition to what has already been said, I would like to mention that a number of recommendations were made within the context of a number of themes with regards to this submission, including transforming Brimbank, planning for climate action, planning for an integrated activity central network, ensuring an integrated transport outcomes are achieved across the network, providing housing choice and diversity, the establishment of a regional planning approach, providing services needed for growing communities, and delivery planning certainty. This is certainly a great piece of work and very, very comprehensive. And I would like to congratulate the Kelvin Walsh and the officers for such a wonderful submission and the work that went into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? Councillor David?
Thank you. Just briefly, Madam Mayor, I think Councillor Lancashire and Councillor Borg covered just about everything, but we at Harvester, if you like, we're happy to see that it's so many things happening within the area here. The Melbourne Airport railing, the Sunshine Super Hub, and of course, the reconstruction of Albion Station and that of East Kilo. And indeed, it'd be an excellent activity here in our city once that happens. And I think it's a great report, and thanks to the officers for putting this before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? If not, I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 13.9. Final draft Brimbank City Council Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan 2024-2026. Ms Dumble, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is presented to Council to consider adopting the final draft Innovative Reconciliation Action Plan 24-26, noting the draft Innovative Reconciliation Plan Community Consultation Report and adopting the Brimbank Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Consultative Committee revised terms of reference. The Brimbank RAP is a strategic document that outlines priority actions and deliverables expected under the Reconciliation Australia RAP framework, and those unique to Brimbank's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community and elders and Brimbank Council. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this report? Councillor Borg?
I move the report as per business papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor David?
The officer's recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Council has an ongoing commitment to strategically consider Council's role and approach to work with the First Nations people and the Torres Strait Islanders and advance reconciliation. This final draft, Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan, July 2023, is a testimony of that. Pleased to say we have come a very long way on this specific journey. It was interesting to read the answers to the questions with regards to this plan. They all have been noted and relevant changes have been made. Some changes may be small, but highly significant. I would like to point out that internally, as an organization, Council has a reconciliation action plan that is a rep champion. It maintains an internal working group and additionally a designated First Nations lead role which will guide the successful implementation of the rep. I commend this report to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Councillor David, would you like to speak
No,
to this
thank you,
report?
Madam Mayor.
Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. We're going to go to 13.10, Final Draft Sports Facility Hire Licenses and Leases Agreement Policy 2024. Ms Dumble, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is presented to Council to consider adoption of the final draft Sports Facility Hire Licenses and Leases Agreement Policy 2024 and the associated final draft guidelines. These documents include a review of fees and charges and incorporates the Victorian State Government Fair Access Policy and Principles. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor David?
I move the report. I move the report that put forward on business papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Borg?
Happy to second that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor David, would you like to speak to this report?
No, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this report?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, that we had long and robust discussions about this report, and we have taken a number of things into consideration, including benchmarking with other municipalities. So I'm quite happy with this report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 13.11, contract number 24/3495, provision of curbside recyclables processing. Mr. Levers? Yes.
Can I suggest that we move a motion to move reports 13.10, 13.11 and 13.12 as a block?
1 second.
They are contracts? Oh, no, yeah, 11 and 12.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry, Councillor Borg, but we will have to do them separately tonight.
That's fine, Madam Mayor, thank you.
13.11, contract number 24/3495, provision of curbside recyclables processing. Thank you, Mr. Levis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report recommends awarding a contract for the provision of curbside recycling processing to Cleanaway for a period of 5 years, with the option to extend for a for up to 3 one-year periods at Council's discretion. Cleanaway provides the current service for Brimbank, and officers have reviewed their performance as being good and their tender response as best value for Council and the community. This is a critical service for the community and supports Council's commitment to recycling, emission reduction and sustainability, and this contract seeks to maximise the level of recovery and recycling. The contract is based on a schedule of rates, and the cost will vary according to material volumes that are collected, with the estimate for the initial 5-year term being approximately or just over $20 million. Any extension would be based on agreed rates, with cost also being based on material volumes. Budgets will be allocated according to the expected volumes and costs annually, and the current contract is almost at expiry. So as a critical service to council, it's important that council award a contract to ensure continuity of service. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Nguyen.
I'd like to move the motion as the shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Second the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Would you like to speak to this report?
Pretty much, I think it's important for council to continue having our recycling services. So I'd highly suggest that we continue that. Thank you.
Councillor Lancashire.
No comment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 13.12, contract number 19/2503, provision of pound and animal collection services, extension of contract. Mr. Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you mentioned, the purpose of this report is for council to consider the extension of the contract for the provision of pound and animal collection services to Brimbank City Council by the Lost Dogs Home for the final term of 3 years. Officers recommend that council approves the contract extension for the pound and collection services to the Lost Dogs Home for a second additional period of 3 years right through to 30th of June 2027. And as detailed in the officer recommendation, this would be a contract based on an agreed schedule of rates and an estimated amount in the order of 5.2 million for the 3-year term. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the director? Do I have a move of this motion? Councillor
Move the
David.
officer recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second the officer's recommendation.
Councillor David, would you like to speak to it? Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to it?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. We came to the report 13.3, response to preliminary view of governance issue at Brimbank City Council. On 28th of May 2024, the Minister for Local Government, Melissa Horne, wrote to me as the Mayor of Brimbank City Council regarding the preliminary view of governance issues observed by the monitors. The Minister requested a response on the issues outlined in the letter and written commitment to a 10-point plan for good governance by 30th of June 2024. We acknowledge the observation made by the municipal monitors regarding poor governance practice, poor decision-making, and behaviour negatively impacting the well-being of councillors and senior staff. Together, we also recognise the importance of good governance in serving the Brimbank community effectively. Since receiving the letter, councillors have worked collaboratively to reflect on the points raised in the letter and to develop an agreed response, including a forward-focused 10-point plan, which outlines Council's commitment and steps it intends to take to address and remind the concerns that have been identified in the Monitor's interim report. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider endorsing the response to the Minister, including the 10-point plan. It is intended that, if supported, all councillors will co-sign the letter to the Minister at attachment 2. I now call for a mover of this report. Councillor Nguyen.
I would like to move the motion as per shared screen.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Borg.
I'll second the report, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to this report?
Yeah, thank you for speaking on the report before, but I would like to acknowledge that all councils are committed to the 10-point plan and the response to the Minister.
Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this report?
I do, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
I would like to start by saying that I think As a council, we owe the community in Brimbank an apology about what happened on and after the council meeting held on the 17th of October 2023. The outcome of this meeting and what happened afterwards created a great deal of anger, frustrations, and uncertainties, among other things. I would like to acknowledge these feelings and say sorry for the community on behalf of Council. You, the people of the Brimbank community, entrusted us with the responsibility to abide by the Code of Conduct and other relevant policies. As a council, it's imperative to honor that responsibility with great dignity and respect, among other things. I would also like to say that we owe an apology to the CEO and the staff about what happened and the way they have been affected personally and as an organization by what happened. Now, moving forward, I am very pleased with this report to the Minister as a response to her letter. I can assure the community that as a council, we are trying our very best with the help of the monitors, and we will move forward with regards to this matter, and we will continue to act on behalf of the community in a very trusting manner, among other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg, and we hope that next meeting apology will be made. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? No? I'll put this item to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. I want to acknowledge the concern raised in the letter from the Minister. There are serious concerns, and I'm pleased that councillors have committed to take this matter seriously. As Mayor, I will continue to support all councillors to ensure that they fully understand their obligation to meet the commitments as outlined in our response tabled tonight. Good governance is essential in ensuring that council runs properly and effectively. I am very pleased that all councillors have committed to following our governance rules, complying with the Act, respecting one another, treating the CEO and staff with respect they deserve, and performing duties that they were elected to perform. I would also like to thank the monitors for their ongoing support during this period. We're going to go to item 14, notice of motion. There are no notices of motion tonight. Item 15, notice of rescission. There are no notices of rescission. Item 16 is urgent business. CEO, is there any urgent business tonight?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item 17, confidential business. There is one item of confidential business. For that, may I have a mover of a motion to close the meeting in accordance with Section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 to the members of the public for the consideration of the item 17.1, which has been designated confidential. Do I have a mover?
I move the motion as per business paper.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Nguyen?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. All in favour, please raise your hands. Meeting is closed. Thank you to everyone who is currently viewing the live stream of this meeting. The meeting is now closed to members of the public at 8:13 p.m. and will not reopen to the public at the councils of the confidential business. Thank you all for attending and for your interest in tonight's meeting. I instruct Channel 31 to stop live streaming this meeting.